Welcome to another program of Laguna Woods Stories, the program where we meet interesting people who live in Laguna Woods and hear something of their life story. Our interesting person today is Annie McCary, and Annie has a habit of showing up in all kinds of different places, very active in a number of clubs. She's been active in the governance here in Laguna Woods, and she is a city council member, so we're going to find out about all of that. But Annie, let's start by finding out more about you as a person. Where did you start life's journey?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for having me on your program and giving me the opportunity to share my story. My story began in the 1950s and 60s in a little town called Plantersville, Alabama, which is maybe 20 miles outside of Selma. And I grew up in a time during the Jim Crow era. And,
oh boy.
Yeah, so for just as a refresher, the Jim Crow were laws that were on the books that really enforced segregation between blacks and whites at the time.
Yeah.
So I grew up during that time.
It was enforced too, wasn't it? I mean, if the whites were too friendly to blacks, they got in trouble.
Yes, and the blacks got in trouble, even though it may have been an innocent exchange.
Yeah.
There were repercussions.
Yeah. So you were born in a small town. Tell us a little bit about what it was like being a black person in the American South at that time.
Well, you know, that's an interesting way to spin it. What was it like being a black person? Because my formative years, that my whole community was black.
Yeah.
And so we didn't know anything differently. And so basically I grew up on a farm, and my parents were not formally educated. My birth order is number 13 of 16.
Oh my goodness.
And so we didn't have modern conveniences like electricity and running water.
Right.
We were farmers and we lived off the land. So it was a life completely segregated from the rest of the world. So,
and so white people were not really part of your life at that time, is that right?
Not in the sense, they were part of the outer world, but the inner world, growing up in the community, white people didn't live in the community, didn't participate in the community. My school, my elementary school was segregated.
Okay, and so that would be all black kids?
Yes, and so growing up during that time, it was growing up in a community where everything was normal.
Yeah, that was the way it was. And to a kid, you wouldn't even imagine that it could be differently, I suppose.
Absolutely. I mean, we ate off the land. We, even though, like I said, we didn't have modern conveniences, but that was the norm. Yeah. So I lived a normally abnormal life.
I shared a little bit of that experience in a whole different part of the world. In a narrow valley in Oregon, we raised sheep, and we had no electricity, so we were farmers as well. But this was an all-white community. I think the closest African American person would have been 50 miles away at Portland. There just weren't any in the community at all, so we didn't know a single African American person. Only minorities that we knew were American Indians, Native Americans, but separate, but very, very different. So you were born and went to grade school in a small town in Alabama.
Yes.
And that was a segregated school. Did you go to any integrated schools in Alabama? Yes.
When I attended junior high, that was around the time when the state of Alabama mandated the enforcement of school integration. So in my community, all the black schools were closed, and we were bused from our homes to the schools in the white community.
And how did that sit with the black kids at that time? Was that kind of scary, or were you happy about it, or?
Well, it was a scary time. I don't know if I would say we were happy. It was a scary time because it was something that we had no choice over. And so the way it worked out was that there would be school buses that go around through the community and pick up the black kids, and there would be another school bus that went around to pick up the white children.
So even though the schools were integrated, the buses were not.
Buses were not. And we would go to the same school, and it's interesting the way the classroom was set up. The white kids sat on one side of the classroom, and the black kids sat on the other side. And the teacher, it was a white school, so the teacher was white, and so the teacher basically taught to the white side of the room.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what he or she would have been used to doing, and so probably didn't really even know where to start with the.
Well, maybe not know, and I could say maybe didn't know, but you know, didn't venture out to.
Yeah.
There was no welcoming.
Was there much social interaction between the black kids and the white kids, and dances and things like that?
No, that was not permitted. Even in the lunchroom.
Not permitted.
Even in the lunchroom, the whites went to the lunchroom.
So the integration was very limited.
It was very limited. And over the years, it did get better. It got better as I got into 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. My last senior years were a little bit more bearable or more tolerable. That way, when the integration really began, when the students began talking to each other.
Right.
Because up until that point, the students weren't talking to each other.
So if a black girl talked to a white boy, would that be a big problem?
Oh, that would be a big problem. That would be a big problem.
Wow.
Yeah, and it would be a big problem for the students, but back then, that would be a big problem for the parents as well. Because oftentimes parents bore the repercussions of the acts of their children.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, we were taught very well to comply.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yes.
How about the content of the classes? Were they at a good level, or were you prepared to go on to college after graduating from that high school?
That's interesting. I passed all the classes, and there is a difference between being passed on from one grade to the other and learning. I do have to say my learning was hampered a bit because I was never graded per se.
Oh, really?
Never the opportunity to participate in class discussion, which is where a lot of learning occurs. And that just wasn't available for the black students because the teacher taught the classes to the white students.
What about after-school sports?
After-school sports, there were after-school sports. In about 10th grade, my brother, who is a very good football player, was able to get on the football team. And so as he was excelled in football and the school excelled to national level, then we were more welcome to participate in school activities. But, you know, it's the South, and so there weren't, like, nightclubs that you could go to. There weren't, basically, we had to go home after school and work the fields.
Yeah.
So that was our after-school activities.
And that was your living.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So at some point, obviously, you're here in California now, so at some point you transitioned to California. How did that happen?
Well, after I graduated from high school, my brother lived in California, and he invited me to come to California to live with him. My aunt, who lives in another state, had said to me, if I wanted to go to nursing school, if I moved to Pennsylvania, she would pay for my nursing school.
Wow.
But there was a little bit of a tussle between my aunt and my brother, because my aunt wanted me to live with her, and my brother wanted me to live with him.
You were in very much demand.
Yeah. So my brother,
good,
my brother won out, and I moved to California.
Okay. It had nothing to do with the beaches or
I knew nothing about the beaches or any of that stuff. He said, he asked me if I would, he said, would you consider coming to California and stay for a little while, and if you don't like it, then you can leave.
What was that like, moving from Alabama to California? A big cultural shift, I would think.
Yes, it was a huge, huge cultural shift. I tell you, going from, a town that barely had any street lights to come into the big city in California where they're just, the cities are so well populated, houses are so close together, transportation of all means, it was a lot.
Yeah. And in California, you were no longer a member of the most dominant minority.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How was that?
Well, the neighborhood that I moved to was also basically segregated. So that was something that was very familiar, the segregated neighborhood. When I started taking classes, I enrolled in Long Beach City College, which is where I moved to, and I started taking classes at City College, and that's when the integration for me really began in California.
So is that kind of the first time that you made white friends and that sort of thing?
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And it took a while to make friends because I think I was still in culture shock from moving from Alabama to California and then having to make some career decisions for myself and knowing that at some point I'm going to have to be on my own. I couldn't live with my brother forever. So making friends wasn't high on my priority list. But I did manage to meet some really good people that I was able to share stuff with as I journeyed through nursing school. Because nursing was really, really difficult. And at that point, any support.
Inherently. It's not a snap course.
Yeah, so I developed some support systems and some study groups and such.
So then did you have a career as a nurse?
I have spent all of my career as a nurse.
And did you specialize in any particular part of nursing?
Yes, I specialized. After I got my registered nursing degree, I went on and I got a public health certificate, so I have a public health certificate. I specialized at one point in gerontology. I worked for a time in pediatrics, public health, as I said earlier, and hospital infection control and epidemiology is where I ended my career. But I also went on and got my nurse practitioner certificate. So as a nursing administrator, working in the field of infection control and epidemiology was really, really where I spent the bulk of my career.
Wow. And somewhere along the line, I think you acquired a husband and some children. Tell me about them.
Yeah, well, I dabbled in family life with marriage and stuff. I had a couple of trial runs with marriage.
That's not unusual, unfortunately, these days.
I do have, I am currently married. My husband and I have been married for 11 years now. Yeah, I have two children and 3 grandchildren.
Well, grandchildren are wonderful.
Yes,
like many people have said, if they knew how much fun grandchildren were, they would have skipped the kids and went straight to which of course is not possible. But, but unfortunately, grandkids grow up too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to say though, I have really good. I don't want to call them children because they're adults, but they're really good citizens. Really good citizens, and they value themselves, they value other people, and they treat people the way they'd like to be treated.
What kind of perspectives, now that you're living in a predominantly white place, African Americans are a pretty small minority here. I don't even know how big.
Very, very small, less than 1%.
Less than 1%, oh my goodness. Yeah. So what benefits or what lessons does, coming from your kind of background, the deeply segregated South, to go through the various parts of life that you've been through, what have you learned?
Wow, I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
One of the big things that I've learned is it really doesn't matter what color your skin is. What really matters is we're all human. Underneath it all, we're all human. And some of us betray our humanness in an ugly way, and some of us betray our humanness in a loving way. But what I've learned is no matter how ugly someone seemed to be, it's not, even though it might be an invitation for me to meet them at their level, I just don't. I meet them at my level, which is more the loving and compassionate way.
Wow. That is a great lesson.
Thank you.
We all need to know that. Now, you have been involved in a number of clubs. Let's put that aside for a minute. But you've been involved in some of the governance here within Laguna Woods. So tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I served on the Third Mutual Homeowners Association board for almost 4 years. And learned about the governance of the Third Mutual and also the entire village. It really was a great learning experience for me.
So for people who have maybe been here less than 10 years or something like that, it takes a while to figure out all these mutuals and all that. So what is Third Mutual? Third
Mutual is a segment of the entire village. The village is divided into United Mutual, which is the co-op aspect, and Third Mutual is the condos, and and then there's the Golden Rain Foundation, which is in charge of the land,
and these are both somehow under GRF and.
Well, they're not. They're under the village.
Under the village.
So they each have their own set of bylaws and governance.
And more recently, you have gotten elected to the City Council of the City of Laguna Woods. Now, this is confusing, I think, to a lot of people. We have Laguna Woods Village, and we have the City of Laguna. Tell us, what's the city all about? I mean, we're much more affected, I think, here by the village than we are by the city, but we're under both. Yeah,
well, the village makes up the predominant population of the city. There are some other areas of the city, like the other senior living communities, and a couple of businesses, a few businesses within the city. But the village itself has its own set of rules and guidelines, and they govern themselves. And the city is responsible for government codes that need to be enforced. But Laguna Woods Village has its own governance.
So you're on the city council.
Yeah.
How many people are on that?
There are five council members, and right now we are an all-female council.
Really?
In Laguna Woods, yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
So, what are some of the issues that you wrestle with in the city of Laguna Woods?
Well, I don't know if we wrestle with anything because we're a small community. There's certain things that we don't have like other big cities do. Like we don't have public schools and some of the other stuff that bigger cities do. We basically make sure that the city is running properly. Law enforcement. We are the city. The Orange County Sheriff's Department control our city in terms of law enforcement.
If I understand that correctly, the city hires the county sheriff's department to be our police force.
Yes, they are contracted. Yes.
So some of our budget, I think a big chunk of our budget goes to that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when you see a sheriff's car that has the name of Laguna Woods City on it,
that's a security. If it says it's Laguna Woods, Laguna Woods may have their animal control people come up, but if you see a car that says police, it's not Laguna Woods Village.
I see.
We don't have a police; we have a security department.
Right. So the sheriff's department serves in the same way.
Yeah, they are law enforcement. They enforce the law.
Yeah. So they are under the city of Laguna Woods, not the village.
Right, they are contracted by the city.
And the village has its own
Security.
force, so that's a little confusing too, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
The city just opened a new library.
Yes, it's the Orange County Library, and it's right next to City Hall. Right, maybe we call it a hop, skip, and a jump.
Right.
From City Hall.
Connected to the building, I think, isn't it?
No, it's not connected to the building.
Not. Okay, it almost appears to be. But,
Yeah,
so,
and they just celebrate their 1-year anniversary. So it's been
right?
open for 1 year, and we're very pleased with the participation and how people are visiting the library.
And the library is one of the Orange County.
It is an Orange County library.
County libraries,
Yeah.
and so it's tied to the others, so they can get books from the other libraries.
Absolutely.
And that sort of thing. So even though this library is pretty small, it has pretty deep resources.
It really does, yes.
Yeah. What are some of the other things that you as a city do or are responsible for?
Well, we're responsible, first of all, we listen to what the residents say, what their concerns are. And we direct our city manager to do investigation. Any issues that are concerned, we take it to the city manager and ask him to do a report and bring it back to the council so we can have a discussion about it.
But typically what kinds of issues?
Let's see, coyotes, maybe.
Yeah.
And
Ongoing issue here for
it's
sure.
an ongoing. So when there's a complaint about coyotes, we reach out to the Laguna Beach Animal Control.
Yeah.
And they come in and they do an investigation. They do education about coyotes and tell people some of the things that they can do to protect their pets and themselves.
And why Laguna Beach? Because we're not in Laguna Beach.
We contracted out with them. We don't have our own animal control.
Oh yeah.
So we contract with them for the animal control.
Yeah, so they're very close.
Yes.
They
are.
bought Laguna Woods Village, I think. So.
Yeah.
You're also very active in quite a number of clubs.
Yeah.
And you've been involved recently in some club activity. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with the clubs.
Well, I am president of the African American Heritage Club here, and we are thriving club. Our goal and our mission is to acknowledge and educate African American contributions to the world, to the history of the United States, because a lot of it has been left out of the history books. So our club have some major events that we do. One of them is we always celebrate Black History Month, and that's coming to an end very quickly. By the time this airs, February will be over and we'll be done with Black History Month. We celebrate some of our more popular events like Kwanzaa and, of course, our Juneteenth celebration.
So Juneteenth is a holiday that most of us were not aware of until fairly recently. What is Juneteenth?
Juneteenth, actually June 19th, Juneteenth is an acronym for June 19th. It's a day that commemorates the last slaves out of Galveston, Texas, learning about their freedom. It was on June 19th. 2 years after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, it took that long for the last of the slaves to be freed.
Right, and without national television networks or radio
or internet
or any of those sorts of things, laws would be passed, I suppose, in Washington that the rest of the country wouldn't maybe know about for a couple of years.
For a couple of years, it traveled very slowly. So recently, in 2020, I believe, President Biden signed into law making June 19th a federal national holiday.
Yeah.
I believe it's federal holiday, one of the two. So it's a holiday now. We celebrate that every year.
Okay. And is it on June 19th or?
The holiday is June 19th. Our club celebrates, we meet the third Saturday of every month. So the third Saturday of every month, we have our Juneteenth celebration.
But you have very few African Americans living here in the woods, so is the club exclusively African American?
No, no. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because the African American Heritage Club is about celebrating our heritage and not our skin color. So our heritage includes the way we sing, the way we dress, the way our foods that we eat. It's all about our heritage. And we invite anybody who wants to be a part of that to come and join our club. And we have a large segment of our club members are non-African American.
I see. Okay. All right. And what kind of activities does the club do?
We just collaborated with the Old Pros, where we did a poetry reading celebrating Black History Month. We celebrate women, we celebrate men, we celebrate Juneteenth, we celebrate Kwanzaa, we educate.
And you have a website, I presume?
We do. We have a website.
We'll put the website onto the screen so people can
Yes, it's aahc.lagunawoods@gmail.com. And we post all of our upcoming events and all of our past events on the website. And we do have an upcoming event coming up in April. It's a fundraiser for us, and we're going to have two bands that are going to be playing at the Performing Arts Center. So we're putting out flyers about that, letting people know, and we hope people come out and celebrate with us. It's a fundraiser for the club.
Wonderful. Well, Annie McCary, it's been wonderful having you as our guest. What an interesting story. Born the 13th of 16 children in Alabama, and came to California for nurses training, had a career as an RN. And
a nurse practitioner.
And now you have lived here in the village for a number of years.
Yes, my husband and I have lived here for 11 years.
And you are a council member.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay.
Yes.
That means you're the next mayor, right?
That's what I'm hoping for. Yes. Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think the council rotates the mayor position a year at a time. Is that right?
Yes, 1 year at a time.
Something like that. So, well, we'll have to, Your Honor, we'll have to give you a little more deference once you're the mayor. Okay. You're all right with that.
Okay, I'm all right with that. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Annie. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we invite you to join us. This program repeats throughout the month of March, and then we'll have a new guest and a new program next month in April.